You know the vibes. We are back for another week of the Hoop Genius podcast presented by NBA 2K22. I'm your host, Mo Mutsi, alongside of course, the three-time NBA champion, Mr. BJ Armstrong. BJ, 10 games left for most teams in the regular season. How are you feeling?
Well, Mo, before we start off today, and every time you always say BJ Armstrong, you know what I always want to say after you say that?
Uh-huh.
Real name, no gimmicks.
Now you want me to start giving the full name? You want me to introduce the show? Starring and co-host of the podcast.
No,
6'2" from Detroit, Michigan. Benjamin Roy Armstrong Jr. That's how you want it? We can do that.
I don't know. Every time you, I always want to say that. But every time you say that, so just a little inside joke with myself. That's what happens.
Hey
sorry.
Man, it's so good.
Sorry.
It's so good. The kid, BJ Armstrong, the kid who's turning into my OG, BJ Armstrong. The NBA getting down to the business end of the season. I like the play-in because now a lot of games hold a lot more meaning. We were just on Sky TV covering the Pelicans and the Atlanta Hawks. Both teams fighting for play-in position. I think the Hawks have got that 10th seed locked up, I guess. The Washington Wizards and the Knicks aren't catching them. But the Pelicans overtook the Lakers. The Lakers now only about 2.5 games ahead of the San Antonio Spurs. Dangerous territory for the Lakers. LeBron passed Karl Malone in scoring. We can talk about that. We can gas up LeBron if we want. But let's talk about the basketball for the rest of the season, man. We don't need to tell you how amazing LeBron James is. You guys hear that all the time, and we've said it on numerous shows across TV and whatnot. Heading into the play-ins / play-off, the Eastern Conference is really intriguing me because Toronto is soaring up the standings and the Cleveland Cavaliers are looking to dip down. And actually, before we get into that, we've got an exciting few episodes coming up this week.
Oh,
we had our man, Mr. Brian Scalabrine, aka the White Mamba. Come on, not for one, but you guys are getting 2 episodes of the White Mamba this week. Okay, you guys are gonna have to wait for that. But he said something really interesting, BJ. He said something really interesting. I want to break this down with you. He said it's an idea I've been thinking about for a while, and he said it on the show. And he said the top seeds in the playoffs should be able to pick their first round opponents instead of jockeying for position. So I want to run through this exercise with you, and I want to put you in the minds of these teams. So if the playoffs were to end today, there's about 10 games left for each team. But let's start with the East. The Miami Heat are the number 1 seed. Okay. And you can take any of the other teams outside of the top 4 to be your first round opponent. So right now, you could choose from the Bulls, the Cavs, the Raptors, and the Nets. Who are you taking if you're the Miami Heat, and why?
Well, first, can I say something about that idea? I think
course.
If you are the first and the second seed, it gives you an incentive to play.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you an incentive to compete, which we love.
Yes.
And then all of these games are meaningful games.
Facts.
All of this, see, when they mean something, it hits a little different. Now, when you have these,
you're going all out for
management and all of that.
You're going all out for the 82. You're going all out, 82 games every game.
Okay, because now you get a chance to pick who you want to play.
Mm-hmm.
Then, just like you see those guys picking at the All-Star weekend, now all of a sudden, it hurts a little different when you're boy. So if Mo says, hey, I want to play VJ. Now, we boys, and all of a sudden now you're like, oh.
It gets personal.
Hey. Like they say in the streets, oh, you think something is sweet on this side over here. Now, all of a sudden, you see guys having to compete.
Yes.
Now, think about that. So I like the idea.
I love it.
We touched on it with Scal. Scal he's the first person I've heard actually as a suggestion, but I hope the league, I know the league is listening. This is a great idea. I think it has something they should possibly incorporate or at least consider, because now all of a sudden that game in November, December, and January, it has a lot of meaning. And you want to make sure if you're going to play this team, think about this. What if you finish first, the team that finishes 8th, and they're 4-0 against you, and you avoid that team to play a team that you see? To me, now it adds another whole layer to why.
And for me, if you're the 1 seed and you pick any team to go up against and you lose,
now it's.
Come on, man.
Be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, exactly.
You just might get it.
Exactly. We need to see that. We need to see. So
I do. We do.
If you're the Miami Heat right now, you finish number 1 in the Eastern Conference, which I think they will. Which of those teams would you be looking at going up against?
I would want to, if I were them, I would want to play Charlotte.
No. Out of the top 8. Because this is assuming Charlotte and Atlanta don't make it.
They have to play Brooklyn. They would have to play Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn wins that. Oh, well,
if you're the Heat, who are you picking? Though?
Who would I pick?
Yeah. Which of those? Chicago.
Okay.
Chicago, right. Cleveland. I got it. The top 4 seeds are safe. The top 4 seeds.
I would pick Chicago.
Chicago. Okay.
I would pick Chicago.
Why?
Because I know that I have a significant advantage against what's the big kid there?
Vucevic. Well, the Heat have won all 3 regular season matchups against the Chicago Bulls.
I have a significant advantage that I can play screen roll and I can attack the basket. So when you play in the playoffs, you want to be able to attack that basket.
Yeah, you can't rely on the outside shooting.
Can't rely on the outside shooting because the game's going to slow down. And I want to be able to play screen roll, and I want to be able to attack the basket. And I know Bam has an advantage versus Vooch every single night.
And I think that helps Jimmy Butler, who's not much of an outside shooter. He likes to attack on the inside. Kyle Lowry in that screen roll, Tyler Herro as well coming off the bench. I like that. But then if you're Milwaukee, if you're Milwaukee now,
who would I play?
And the Bulls are off the board now. Bulls versus Miami are locked in.
Well, right now Philly is too, but all right, we'll say Milwaukee.
All right, my app hasn't updated.
Okay.
Now, right now here it says Milwaukee are 2.
Okay, it doesn't. They have the same record. If I'm Milwaukee, I play Cleveland, and I don't want to play Cleveland but I want to take Cleveland.
Let me ask you this: if Jarrett Allen was still healthy, would you still have that answer?
I don't think so.
Neither do I.
I don't think so. But I think now I would take Cleveland if I'm Milwaukee.
Yeah.
If I'm Milwaukee.
The Cavs have won 2 of their 3 regular season matchups, but that was with Jarrett Allen. So unfortunately, due to injuries, I can see that happening. But then if you're Philly, Chicago's off the board, Cleveland's off the board. What's interesting is we picked the 5 and the 6 seed so far. The 7 and 8 seed might be tougher matchups than the 5 and the 6 seeds. So Toronto or Brooklyn, if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, I feel like from an ego perspective, you have to pick Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying?
I'm taking Toronto. I'm taking Toronto. I'm not playing around. I'm not playing around with you.
Well, they just lost to Toronto though.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm taking Toronto. I'm not, listen, KD and Kyrie, I'm picking a game that I feel the most confident in. Game 7. I feel much more confident any 2 players than Kyrie and KD. Those guys, okay.
Well,
The
Nets are
that's what I'm taking.
The Nets are 3-1 versus the Sixers this season, and the Raptors are 2-1 versus the Sixers this season. And I think they're still going to play again. So that's interesting how the number 8 seed in this format would be playing against the Boston Celtics is the scariest seed. Is this bring it to me. Bring it to me. Man.
That would be that's a good first round matchup right there.
Hey, I would love it. The Celtics have won their last 3 games against the Brooklyn Nets. Kyrie Irving only available for half the series. I'm down with it. Celtics in 5. But is the Brooklyn Nets, assuming they get the 8th seed, the scariest 8th seed you've ever seen? I talked about this on my Snapchat show. If you guys didn't know, I've got a show on Snapchat. It's called In the Paint. Go search that. Every week I break down the biggest and best stories from around the NBA. Go check that out. But is this the scariest 8th seed, if Brooklyn get the 8th seed, that you've seen in your lifetime?
You know, Brooklyn reminds me of the following. You know, I don't know what the separation is between insanity and a genius. I don't know where the
it's a thin line, my brother. It's a thin line.
It's a thin line. I don't know what the division is. Because on one hand, you're saying Brooklyn, there's no way Brooklyn should be 8. Think about this. Brooklyn at one point was the number 1 seed, and now they are the 8th seed.
It's crazy.
So I don't know if this is a team that is incredibly underachieved or just circumstances.
It was that losing streak. It was that crazy losing streak when KD was injured. Kyrie could only play half the games. James Harden was clearly unhappy, demanding his way out. So that's what really shot them down in the standings. But if I'm any team in the East, I'm shook. They're the 1 seed. Basically, if they finish 8th, they take on the Heat in that first round and they win, they're basically the 1 seed, even though they don't have, because them not having home court is home court for them. They're the first team ever who don't want home court because Kyrie Irving can play more games if they don't have home court. So them playing 4 games on the road works better for them than playing 3 games on the road. So their default home court advantage, it plays into their hands.
Home court is home court. I'm not buying that.
Well, they don't really have fans though in Brooklyn. Like they've got some fans. Don't get me wrong. Shout out to the Brooklyn Nets fans, but their arena's packed with Knicks fans.
Yeah, home court is home court. You know, home court is home court. I'm not buying that, especially in the playoffs.
How much of a difference does that make?
Home court in the playoffs?
Yes.
It makes a big difference. And the reason it makes a difference is because what we're not talking about and what we're not considering here is the following. You know, when you go to a city, you play it and you leave. But when you're in the playoffs, you got to sit there with it.
Yeah.
If you play bad for 1 game on Monday, there's a chance that you may at the earliest play on Wednesday, or for TV, you might have to sit there till Thursday. Mm-hmm. You got to sit with this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you get no love.
You don't get a chance to play bad and then leave and go play somewhere else and you don't hear what's being said, right? You cut your Twitter off or your Instagram and you play bad in Cleveland. You got to sit in Cleveland Monday night, answer that question. Tuesday at practice, shoot around, answer that question. Wednesday, answer that question. Thursday, get the feature on why they lost game 1. And you got to sit with that. And guess what?
You got to see me break it down on the touch screen.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then you got to play against the same guy who you played bad against.
And you're getting no love in that city. If they ain't taking care of you like in the regular season, but they're excited to see the NBA
it's play. Worse. The worst is when you lose at home in game 1. And you got to sit with that and listen to talk radio, ESPN, and then it gets real quiet in there. You know how you at the regular season they're clapping for you.
Oh no!
You know, now all of a sudden now you go 3 for 18, and you know the announcement comes out and you hear okay, we're going to see if you're going to respond. Mm-hmm. And then don't let you play bad again in that half. You might hear some boos in the second half.
Oh,
so it's a little different game. So you know, I don't. You know, I'm just saying.
A team who's been very strong at home and on the road, the Phoenix Suns, 30-8 at home, 28-6 on the road. Very impressive. Only losing 6 games on the road all season so far. They would be the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. And if we continue this exercise, the Dallas Mavericks, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Denver Nuggets, and the LA Clippers. Who are you trying to face in that first round if you're Phoenix?
play the Clippers.
Yeah. I'm not messing with Luka. I'm not messing with the Joker. And the Minnesota Timberwolves have been on crazy good form recently. I'm going with the Clippers with all due respect to Ty Lue.
Mm-hmm. I'm
But
going
then
with the Clippers.
if you're the Memphis Grizzlies at the number 2 seed, Minnesota, Denver, or Dallas?
I'm going with Denver.
Why?
If I'm Memphis, I'm going to play against the team that I have the biggest advantage against. And I think the guard play of Denver is not as good as D'Lo and them kind of make me nervous a little bit. D'Lo and Ant-Man, you know, I'm going to say this about him. I'm sorry. I don't want to get sidetracked here because I know we're doing and actually this exercise is fun. Anthony Edwards kind of makes me nervous in the playoffs. D'Lo is not afraid to play against big games.
Ice in his veins.
He makes big shots.
That's right.
Okay. And when you're playing in the playoffs, you have to have superior guard play. Both of those guys are capable of getting 25 to 30 for an entire series.
And they've got a couple good defenders on their team too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay. And then you put that in with Karl Anthony Towns running a screen roll. I don't want to face that until I have to, because those are the type of guys where you got to win your first 2 games, make them think about it going home, and force them to say, do I really want to fight from uphill? And
they're playing with house money in Minnesota.
Yeah, exactly.
For them, they've won. Okay. Yeah, they've made the playoffs for the first time in how long? This season, even if they get swept in the first round, this season is considered a W for them.
Yeah, but they're supposed to. Yeah, but I would not want to play. So I would play against Denver because Jamal Murray's not there. I think Ja Morant should dominate that series, and Ja Morant should be able to exploit if they have a weakness. You know, Joker has improved, but still, that's a lot of pressure on him having to be the rim protector and score and pass. And I think Ja Morant's athleticism wears them down. So if I were them, I would want to play Denver before I played Minnesota.
And the Grizzlies have won all 3 matchups against the Denver Nuggets so far this season. Yeah. And I like Steven Adams can just, you know, kind of give the Joker a little bit of a hard time. Just be physical. I'm not saying that he'll shut him down, but just be physical. You know, get under his skin a little bit in a way that Steven Adams can. But then if you're the Golden State Warriors, you've got the Dallas Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Who are you going with?
I definitely don't want Luka. I don't want to play Luka.
Everyone's running scared of Luka Doncic in the Western Conference.
Luka has the ability to win a series
on his
own. Win a game. He can win a series.
Think about it. It took Kawhi Leonard and Paul George just to get this kid out of the playoffs his first 2 times around, and they almost didn't do it.
Luka is a great talent because most players, when the game slows down, they lose maybe something. Luka is one of those players, when the game slows down, he gains something.
Yes. Well, because he controls the pace. He plays at his own pace. You can't speed him up.
Look, I don't want to play against Luka. So if I was Golden State, I'd play against Minnesota, and then that would leave Utah and Dallas.
Who do you think wins that?
And
because the Utah Jazz, they're playing with a lot of pressure on them.
Yeah, if it goes past 5, okay, Utah better make quick work of them. You better make quick work of them. If you don't beat them in 5, game 6 and game 7, that's Luka. Because I think Luka can take the game. He could take the game. He could go win the game on the road in Utah if he had to. That's game 7, and he can win 6. If he goes to 6 back home in Dallas, he's winning that.
Man, you better be packing your bags if you're on the Jazz roster, because they got Danny Ainge sitting there watching the games, and you can't be a first-round exit with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert on your team. So I just think that would be a really fun idea, though, because we would get some great matchups. That would get some great matchups. And funnily enough, the matchups you picked from the Western Conference are the matchups as it stands: 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7 in terms of the Grizzlies versus the Nuggets. the Warriors versus Timberwolves. So that's interesting how it's completely different to the East, where it's almost flipped up on top of its head. But, looking at this playoff stretch now, the final 10 games to the season, you've been on teams that have made runs all the way to the NBA Finals. From a contender standpoint, looking at the top teams who want to be in the NBA Finals, at what stage do you start resting guys in case they pick up a knock before the playoffs? When do you start considering that into your decision making? Because you want to close out the season strong so you have momentum going into the playoffs. But at the same time, you don't want anyone to be out there picking up an unnecessary, not that any injuries are necessary, but, picking up an injury that could have been prevented, in some would describe as meaningless minutes.
Well, Mo, I'm going to share something with you. Regular season, people talk about resting. But I'm going to share a little secret to hear and our listeners here. When the playoffs begin, you don't want to take any days off.
That's facts.
Because the game is all about timing. So when you start resting, you lose your timing because you don't practice during the playoffs. It's film, okay, and it's details. Because you have to, there's no excuses for not bringing the effort and the energy. Okay, you can't, some nights you might not shoot well, but you got to defend. That's gonna hold you in the game. Somebody might get hot on the other team, whatever the case may be. So your film work has to be at an all-time high because I can't afford to play in a game where if it comes down to one possession, I have to be able to play that possession at an elite level. So resting, what does resting feel like in the playoffs? If you sweep a team, you are very happy that you swept the team, right? The brooms come out, your fan base is happy, everyone's feeling good. It's the worst time because you don't know when you're going to play. It throws off your rhythm.
You just sat there waiting for everyone else.
You don't know if you don't want to practice because the last thing you want is you practice and someone sprains an ankle in practice.
Mm-hmm.
Someone jams a finger in practice. You don't know which team, what city. It just throws off everything. You want that game rhythm. Nothing replaces you want that game rhythm, right? You want to be playing every other day. Game, off a day, play. Because you need that, okay? You don't want to be sitting around for 3, 4, 5 days and the other team is continuing to play because game flow is different than practice flow. Yeah. And once you lose that game flow, Mo, it normally takes a game or two to get back in that flow. So I don't think there's time. What I would like to do is you shorten the minutes because when the playoffs come, you try to extend the minutes. Normally you try to give your starters at least 6 to 8 minute runs. Mm-hmm. Now you may shorten that to 4 to 6 runs because you want people to try to learn how to play at a maximum. So when you're coming off the bench, normally you'll try to give, a minute or two to get yourself loose, right, Bo? You come in, and literally touch the ball. You can't do that in the playoffs. Now you got to sit there, concentrate, and your matchup, and the coach has already said, Mo, hey, when Lou Williams comes in, be ready. That's your matchup. And you got to win your matchup. Mm-hmm. So I just think all that resting and all that, Mo, you can't afford to think that way because one game, Mo, one possession, Mo, you're out. Okay.
Well, it's interesting you say that, talking about the minutes, because right now, the minutes leaders in the NBA, the top 2 players in terms of minutes played are Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam. Fred VanVleet, 38 minutes a game. Pascal Siakam, almost 38 minutes a game, right? So if you're the Toronto Raptors, you're looking to get up in the standings to kind of avoid that play-in spot. But at the same time, you might want to reduce those minutes for those guys because they're going to be so vital to your playoff run. So it's a very tough decision for the coaching staff, Nick Nurse and those guys in Toronto, and what they should do because they're only one game behind Cleveland, who are in the 6th seed, and Cleveland have been falling dramatically.
Well,
so
I think under normal circumstances, you're correct, Mo, but every situation requires you to live in that moment. Remember, Mo, last year, They were in Toronto, not Toronto. They were in Tampa Bay, and it was an awful season for them by Toronto standards.
It was the Tampa Tank. It worked out amazingly. They got Scotty Barnes.
Yes. Okay, so I think under whatever they have to do, get to the playoffs, because that's you're building a new culture. You're building a new, the way they like to play, and more importantly, it gives Scotty Barnes an opportunity to get a taste of the playoffs, which I think would be amazing for any young player.
Now, PJ, we've just seen a bunch of good games on Sunday night. We see some games go down to the wire. We saw the overtime, the Kings and the Suns. We saw the Hawks and the Pelicans have a close one. We saw, the Warriors have a crazy ending against the Spurs. But man, the Boston Celtics keep gassing me up. They just went into Denver. First of all, I got to point out, the crowd was chanting, "Let's go Celtics" in Denver, in the Mile High City. They were chanting, "Let's go Celtics." The arena was filled with green jerseys, and they took care of business. And when I say they took care of business, Jokic, the MVP, the man whose stats nerds have on their bedroom walls. Jokic came and shot 8 from 23 from the field. 2 turnovers. It wasn't an MVP kind of performance. The Celtics destroyed the Dynamics. And here's my problem. I've got a big problem now, BJ. They keep gassing me up. I've said this to you before. The Boston Celtics are giving me so much hope right now. I need you to convince me to stop dreaming about a parade in Boston this summer, because the way they're steamrolling through every team they play right now is getting my hopes up beyond belief. Tell me why I'm crazy.
Well, you should be. You should be excited about this team. The Boston Celtics have done a complete 180. Let's just call it like it is. The Boston Celtics, they made a huge move in leadership. Okay, they have a new head coach. They have a new system. Clearly, defensively, this new coach has come in and made demands on them that wasn't in place before. And now, this new system of play has created the following. It's giving you and the Boston Celtic fan base hope. Why? Because you're seeing a what we consider, league-wise, not my term, a blended brand of basketball, meaning offense, defense, and this team is playing a championship caliber style of play. You couldn't say that a year ago, 2 years ago,
6
but
months
you
ago.
can say that now. Okay, you couldn't even say it at the beginning of the season.
You couldn't even say it at Christmas.
Okay, but now you can say it because your best player, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they're committed to the defensive end. And when you have your best players giving second and third efforts, everyone else has to fall in line. I like what I'm seeing. I have no problem. You should be. I think this team should not be taken lightly. And I think this team is respected, not because of what they do on the offensive end, but because they can defend.
Do you think they have enough to win it all?
I don't think they have enough to win it all. And here's why I say that.
Okay,
here's why I say that. It's because all of the players that they currently are playing, Derek White and those guys, they just got over there.
Okay.
Tice.
He's been White, there.
But again, I'll say it again. They have a new coach. They have a new system.
Okay.
These are not robots where you just plug them in.
Okay. But okay. Al Horford, Tice, they were there before. Okay. Al Horford's plugged back
Al Horford, he's playing a new system. He's playing a new way. And Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum weren't the same players. They're not the same players now that they were then. They're different players. They're better players. Marcus Smart is the starter. Marcus Smart's imprint is all over this team now. Without question, he is the emotional leader. He may not be the best player on the team. He is the emotional leader. He's the conscience of this team. Because let me tell you something. Your season really began when Marcus Smart called everybody out.
Oh, that's facts.
Okay.
That's why it's my favorite.
So now we know that Marcus Smart's intention with this group was in the right place.
Of course.
Because he said something outside of the locker room. Sometimes guys say things and you be like, why did he just didn't say that to the team? Marcus Smart called out his team, and you know what was impressive? His teammates responded. That's called respect. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't have a problem with them, but I think they need more depth.
Okay.
I would love for them to have a player, you hear me say this all the time, Mo, that plays downhill, a lead guard who could push the tempo or change the tempo off the bench, just to give them another look so that they can get easier baskets in the playoffs. Because right now, they play a style, and that style is very, very successful in the regular season. But as you know, Mo, the game is going to be a little different, and the game is going to require people to break the defense down and get easy, uncontested shots. I think they are well on their way. I think with the right matchups, they'll be good. But however, I don't think this team is ready to win a championship this year.
You see, my problem is the way that this team has been playing recently. I can't see a team that I would be afraid of if I was them. I can't see a team that they're not sitting around saying, we could beat them. Philly, we could beat them. Brooklyn, we could beat them. Milwaukee, we could beat them. Well, every time Milwaukee plays Boston, Chris Middleton turns into the greatest player in the history of the world. But aside from that, I just look at it like they're peaking at the right time. Because this is the other factor. They're peaking at the perfect time going into the playoffs rather than some teams
for the regular season. For the regular season, I agree. For the regular season, Mo, just remember this. Just consider this. Winning a regular season game is different than winning a playoff series.
Of course.
Okay. If that is the truth, of course. How many different styles can the Boston Celtics, as the roster is currently constructed, play?
You need to find out. Because they've only been this team for the past 2 months.
At some point, Mo, the other teams are going to take away something. They're going to take away what they do well. Now, what we've seen thus far is I can put together a game plan where I keep the Time Lord on the strong side of the court.
Okay.
That's a big adjustment.
Still not even score 100 points.
Okay. Mo, you're not going to miss every shot. What I'm saying, Mo, all I'm saying is you make shots. So if you're the Dallas Mavericks, you say, we didn't even shoot well and we beat them. We didn't even play well. They played awful. If they make those shots, you're probably down 15.
But they didn't make those shots.
No, Mo, that's my point. When you start winning and you're not playing well, that's a problem. Okay. On the road. It wasn't like we were in Dallas. We were in Boston and they won and they exploited a matchup. Now, in game 2, Mo, you lose. You're down 2-0 going back to Dallas now. This isn't like just a game, then you go and you beat up on Golden State and you beat up on Sacramento, then you beat up on Denver. You're feeling good right now. We won 9 out of 10.
Damn right.
Mo, you could be down 0-2 going back to Dallas. And all of a sudden, there's a level of desperation. So all I'm saying is this team is a good team. If they find the right matchup, I think this team could advance. But right now, Mo, I would love for them to have a guard, a guard who could get them in up tempo so they can get easy, more uncontested shots. Because Mo, I just like I tell you all the time about the Bulls, and I'm not picking on the Bulls, but they have a glaring weakness. Now I'm expecting these better teams, not the teams that they should be, the better teams who have better players. They're going to devise a game plan to exploit your weakness. And that's one of the things I think they will exploit. But again, the Boston Celtics can also make an adjustment too.
Exactly. And that is why I'm going to get you a Time Lord jersey and you're going to wear it.
Please do.
When we're in Boston for the NBA Finals live on national TV. Do you accept these stakes? Do you accept these stakes, Mr. Armstrong?
If they get to the NBA Finals, I will. And I hope in the next 2 or 3 years that we will get a Detroit Pistons series versus your Boston Celtics.
Oh, no.
Because you know what?
Oh, no. You don't want to see.
I feel the same way you feel about the same way you feel about the same way you feel about these, Boston Celtics. I grew up a Pistons fan, and I want to come with the passion and be a fan.
Mm-hmm. It's way more fun.
It's just like when my Iowa Hawkeyes lost.
Yes.
Like,
can I tell you guys a secret?
You feel it different.
Iowa Hawkeyes lost, right? I have a screenshot on my phone. It's on my call log, and it's outgoing call. BJ Armstrong, 52 seconds. The shortest phone call BJ and I have ever had.
Yeah,
I was like, listen, I'm gonna leave you in peace. I'm gonna leave.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, and that's you and I would have to go to that series because you know what?
100%.
I remember as a kid going to when Larry Bird was beating up on our Pistons.
Yep.
And I remember I was in college when my Pistons finally beat Larry Bird. So I want that type of intensity. I want those type of players. And then, Mo, we can really be fans because you know what, Mo? I want the new version of the Bad Boys to come back.
Hey, man, you can do because you're going to watch Jason Tatum beating up on your Pistons. Then maybe when your youngest son's in college, they can finally take out Jason Tatum.
They said that about Kevin McHale and Larry Bird. And you know what? You know what, Mo? Our bench was so deep. I can't believe I'm talking like this because I remember I was a kid in college and I remember watching all these. It was like 87, somewhere around there, 87, 88. I remember just watching those guys and Dennis Rodman when he was young and John Sally and the Microwave and all those guys. Those were fun times. Those were great games. I mean, physical games. And Larry Bird was clearly the best player, but those were fun games.
We used to do a series where we rewatch some of these old school games. But, if this series ever does happen in the future, BJ, and we're in Detroit or we're in Boston for this Pistons Celtics series one day.
How many times have we beat the Celtics this year?
Too many.
What? I didn't hear that. What? How many times did we beat the Celtics this year? I mean, if there's one team we have their number, it's the Celtics. I mean, we have the Celtics number this year.
I mean, you could say that. I mean, you could say that, even though the Celtics have won the season series 3-1. You could make that case because if that playoff series was to happen next season, the season after, whatever, I'm gonna call Uncle Al Horford, and he's gonna take us for dinner, BJ. Do you know where he's gonna take us?
Where?
A very special restaurant because there's only one item on the menu. Do you know what he's gonna be eating for dinner?
No.
Beef stew.
Oh,
that's right.
I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that. I'm not even worried about that. I'm not even worried about that.
Anyway,
I'm not even worried about that. You know what?
Don't worry, man. Listen, I hope Detroit get a great player in this draft. We've seen some great prospects. March Madness. Just quickly before we go, BJ, who is the standout player for you so far, March Madness wise? Just give me one name.
Jay Ivey.
Big time. Big time.
Big time player. Big time player. I want to go on here right now. This kid is a franchise player. He's a franchise athlete. Okay.
Jeez.
Now, this kid at Purdue, ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying it here right now. He is a big time player. Big time. I think he will translate to the next level. I think he has a chance to be not a good player, a great player. I think he has a chance to be an impactful player in the win-loss column in year one. Mo, in year one.
I respect it.
You don't see many of those.
I respect
wherever he goes, Mo, wherever he goes, okay? That franchise should be plus 10.
Wow.
They should get 10 more wins in the column just because of him.
Well, right now, Houston, Orlando, Detroit, OKC, Sacramento. That's the current odds for the top 5 teams.
Who's that? Detroit, who? Sacramento, who else?
It was, let me find it again. I'll just close the tab. It's Houston. It was Houston, OKC, Detroit, and Sacramento. No, I'm wrong. Houston, Orlando, Detroit, OKC. Houston, Orlando, and Detroit have a 52% chance of the top 4 pick as it stands. That means they all have a 14% chance of the number 1 pick. But we're going to dive into that.
If Jaden Ivey, if Jaden Ivey goes to the Pistons, it's over.
Okay. Poor Killian Hayes.
Mo. No, Mo. It's over.
Okay.
It's the Eastern Conference is over.
Okay.
It's over.
Jason
All
Tatum,
I'm going to be saying from this point, bad boy.
I want to remind you, Jason Tatum just turned 24, so we got another 10 years of dominance remaining.
Mo, I'm telling you, if Jaden Ivey goes to the Pistons.
Okay. I'm hearing ifs. I'm saying facts. Jason Tatum dominating Eastern
Conference already. Mo.
President of the Eastern Conference Finals. Facts. Championship incoming. You can enjoy the draft lottery, my brother. But until then, you're going to be rocking with us for the playoffs. And our listeners are going to be rocking with us too. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribed, leave a review, have a great start to your week. And most importantly, get buckets. I'm sorry for cutting you off, BJ. I just had to tell the people, get buckets.